Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my very exciting June TBR video. June is always a really fun month for me because I exclusively read queer books. I've been doing so for the past 3-4 years now, and it's just always a really fun time for me. What's not fun is it being cloudy outside and the cloudiness changing the lighting drastically, but it's fine, we're gonna keep going. But for June this month, I want to feel joy, I want to read fun stuff, maybe some hard-hitting stuff as well, but mostly times are dark, I need to keep it a little light and fun, so I've decided on the theme of queer sports for the month of June. Sports stories are one of my favorite things. Don't really love watching sports. I would say I do like playing sports because I can be very competitive, but I'm not athletic enough to be on any kind of team or anything like that. But the thing about sports stories that I love, it's almost always about found family, rivals, teammates, friend groups, friend dynamics, just dynamics between teammates. There's just a reason why it works so well. Like, there's a reason why so many of my favorite animes happen to be sports animes. It just has so many good character growth moments, character dynamics, inter-character dynamics, and when a story is a queer sports story, it ticks off so many personal boxes for me. They're normally coming of age, they're normally about a character growing into themselves, and again, you have rivalry, you have teammates, you have enemies, and it makes for a great background for a queer romance or a queer story in general. So for my TBR, I'm going to be reading queer sports stories, and so I've been researching and trying to compile all the queer sports books that I could find, and of the ones that I have not read, I have 15 books that I have found. I'm sure I'm missing a lot of books. I know queer sports story is pretty popular in like the erotica and romance genre as well, but I tried to stick to YA, middle grade, and just more standard fiction because I'm not a big romance reader. I'd be willing to try it in the future, but for today, this is what I've compiled of possible choices for me to read this month. So the first book we have on this lovely chart that I made is May the Best Man Win. This is by Alder. I'm gonna have to look up their names, but I will briefly give what I know about these books without looking them up because I do not want to be spoiled. But May the Best Man Win is a YA contemporary novel. The sport is football, American football, and I know it has to deal with trans characters. I think there's possibly a rivalry or a second chance romance element to this book, and I believe it is a male-male romance. Girl Crush, the second book on this list, I think is a new-ish release. This is by Katie Hieni, and I don't know anything about this book except that it is a soccer female-female romance. I believe it deals with a butch protagonist or a butch love interest, which is always something we need more of in YA and just in regular fiction. But I'm excited for a soccer story because I feel like that's starting to become more popular, soccer, or at least in the sport. Not that it isn't a popular sport, I think it's just becoming more popular in the book sphere as a sport to follow. The next book we have is Some Girls Do by Jennifer Duggan. This is another sapphic read. I don't know what the main sport is. Again, I want to say lacrosse or soccer. I believe this is one of the books where the sport is not the main aspect of the book, but that's okay, but because I'm still interested in it. And again, it's a YA contemporary sapphic romance novel. On to row 2, we have Fence Striking Distance. There are 2 Fence tie-in novels, and these are written not by the author of the Fence comic book series, but by, what's her name? The 2 books are by Sarah Rees Brennan, who wrote one of my favorite books, In Other Lands, so I really oddly trust her to write these stories. Fence, if you don't know, is a comic series about a fencing team. The comic has been on a long hiatus. I think the 5th volume just got announced, but I personally love this series. It's a lot of fun. It's to do with fencing. It's very queer, but it hasn't gotten into the main romance yet. It's not even gotten into the main conflict yet, but if you're a fan of sports animes, it definitely follows those kind of plot beats with rivalries, enemies, roommate situation. It's very good, very queer, but I'm very excited to see these tie-in novels and how they fit into the story. But I do trust my girl because she has written, again, one of my favorite books, and I think she can do these characters justice. The next book on this list is She Drives Me Crazy, which was a popular book on BookTube last year when it came out, and this is another sports rivalry story about a basketball player and a cheerleader. I believe they have some sort of thing where they like got off on the wrong foot with each other, but it has been a very popular book on the YA sphere, so I'm excited to check it out. The next book I have is Who I Was With Her, which I believe is more of a hard-hitting contemporary sapphic novel, and I believe this is another one where the sport is not as important, but the main character has played sport in some fashion. I don't know, it came up in my research. I was surprised to see it there because I didn't think that it had anything to do with sports, but I'm very excited to read it. Going on to the next column, we have Spinning by Tilly Walden, and this is a graphic memoir about ice skating and figuring out gender and sexuality. So this is a graphic memoir, so it is going to be a very different kind of sports story from all these other ones, but I've loved Tilly Walden's work of what I've read, and I'm excited to read this. I've wanted to read it for a while. And yeah, as someone who grew up doing ballet, I feel like I'm going to connect a lot with this book and get a lot out of it. This entire little row is graphic comics, by the way. So going on to the next comic, we have Cheer Up, Love and Pom-Poms, and this is a graphic novel about two cheerleaders. There might be some rivalry in there, but I know it's a very cute sapphic story, and I've heard a lot of good things about it, so I'm excited to try it out. And of course, this is cheerleading as the sport, which I'm excited about. Next, we have The Breakaways, which is another graphic novel. This might be middle grade, it might be YA, but I know that it's queer in some way and that it has to do with soccer as its sport. The next book I have is Home Field Advantage by Delia Alder. I believe this is a new release. I saw it in hardcover at the bookstore, so I'm just guessing that it's come out in the last year. And this, of course, is football and cheerleader. I want to say what happens is that the quarterback has something happen to them. They take on a new player to be the quarterback, and it ends up being a girl, and they're not so happy about that. And it is a sapphic romance, so I'm excited to see that one. The next book we have is The Passing Playbook by Isaac Fitzsimmons, and this is another soccer book, and I believe it is another trans main character, and it is a male romance. Going on to Anna on the Edge by AJ Sass. This, I believe, is a middle grade, and it is following Anna, who is an ice skater, and I believe they are figuring out their gender, possibly that they're non-binary, while being in a very gendered sport field. So I'm very interested in this one. Again, it is ice skating. I love ice skating. You're an ice princess. I actually like doing ice skating from time to time, so I'm excited to read some ice skating books. The next book we have on here is The Infinite Noise by Lara Shippen. Going by the cover, I believe this is about a football player, and I believe the football player is the love interest, not the main character. So I think this is one of the ones that doesn't have a lot to do with sports. I believe this one has some speculative elements as well, in that it is not a sports-focused story that just one of the people happens to be a player of sports. But I am still interested in this, especially because it's speculative, it's supposed to be hard-hitting, I believe, and it again is a YA contemporary. Next on the list, we have Darius the Great Is Not Okay. There are actually 2 books in this duology now. I didn't think this one was a sports book either, but I kept seeing it recommended to me, and I believe that the main character is a soccer player or a football player, one of the two, and I believe that they're going to their parents' home country because of some type of scholarship. I thought they were just going there on a visit to like see family members, but I believe there is a sport involved that connects them as well. This is about a father and son. This book is not explicitly queer, but I know the next book is a male-male romance. But this book is really dealing with mental health, the main character trying to connect to their father, but he has a really hard time doing that because they don't have many things that they bond with. And Darius is really caught between his American heritage and his Persian heritage, and just like not kind of fitting into either of them and not really being able to connect to his dad because of that disconnect. I've heard a lot of great things about this book, so I'm really excited to check it out. And the next book I have, and the final book on this list, is Icebreaker, and this is a male-male romance story, a hockey story, which I love hockey stories, so I'm really excited for this one. It's new. I haven't really heard anything about it, good or bad, so I'm excited to see for myself all about it. But yes, those are the 15 books that are kind of on my TBR list for the month of June. So basically, I could read any of these. I don't think I will finish them all, but I have a good list to pick from for my theme of queer sports stories. Some of them are more related to sports than other ones, but I'm glad I have a good mix of different options in there. The next video I'm going to be publishing is a book of all the queer sport books that I have read, so stay tuned for that if you want to know more about queer sport stories. But yes, I would love recommendations. I want to find more. This is a really fun, interesting genre for me personally. But thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you're going to read this month in the comments down below. I would love it if you could leave a comment, a like, anything to tell the algorithm that you enjoy watching my content. Of course, feel free to subscribe as well, because I feel really schmarmy for saying it. But thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys later, and happy reading.